Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? Merry Christmas to you all, because I've missed you over the last week or two. Me and the Quins went away on a bit of a Christmas vacay. We managed to watch Celtic versus Motherwell, which was a pretty good performance, pretty good result, and sadly, we never got a chance to make much content off the back of that. And we follow that very quickly up with our last game of 2024 at home at St Johnstone. And I must say, guys, coming into this video, I am worried about every one of you that are out there. I've heard reports across Glasgow today that it reached as low as -15. We're in the middle of a nuclear winter. Last reporting ended up being -14 in the end. So wherever you're going now, particularly around the Govan area, make sure to wrap up, make sure to stay safe. Always take a bottle of water in the car with you in case you break down and all that good stuff. But seriously, boys and girls, drink it in, because this is how it feels to be Celtic. It really feels like the manager can do no wrong. It feels like all of the players, although sometimes they're not coming out with 10 out of 10 pass marks, really can do no wrong either. And this was a game against St Johnstone where we continued to see some rotations, some tweaks into the squad, as you can tell that Brendan's managing the squad to peak, to start to come together ahead of another very important match for us this season as we look ahead now to the 2nd of January, the first game of the new calendar year, where we go to the Det Dome to take on Rangers. And this video will be a breakdown, will be an analysis of everything we've seen, because there's actually some fantastic talking points that we've seen from Celtic over the festive period here in terms of evolution of the squad, some development on some individual players. But there will be a flavour of the video that is a bit of a prelude to the preview that we'll do here on the channel ahead of Derby Day itself. At any point in the video today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section, guys, because the comment section on this channel is always absolute fire. And like I said earlier, I've missed you in my week away, so I want to hear thoughts and feelings, analysis, breakdowns, takeaways, whatever you've had over the last couple of games across the festive period. It might even spill in to some January transfer business as well. And if you are relatively new here on the channel, at the end of this video, I'll link you into some videos that we've done on some topics around left backs, forwards, the squad, some of this other stuff that's kind of ever present, kind of topics in the Celtic fan media space. And we've already covered these topics, and in case you've missed them, I'll slide them at the end of this video after we do the breakdown on what we've seen against St Johnstone, the player ratings, and really everything else in between. But yeah, hit subscribe for more content like this, hit the like button if you enjoy it, of course. Get back into those comment sections, and yeah, hail hail, let's get stuck into it. Because coming into this match, I think off the back of the form, the results, the form table, the actual table, everything going into this, we all felt pretty confident that this was going to be a really strong, really convincing Celtic performance. That even playing from Thursday to Sunday, it's not really too different to Wednesday, the Champions League stuff and cups and everything else we've been used to anyway. But with it being Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, the next 3 games, the writing was on the wall that we were going to see further rotations. There was 5 changes in this team to the team that played Motherwell. I've been so glad with the development of Liam Scales since the cup final, since coming back into the fold at half-time to maybe not rescue the game as such, but get the defence back ticking, get the engine purring as sweetly as it can. And he's really kicked on in a big way. I was saying on the Axom streams I was doing for this game here that Scales for me is like really showing a huge test of character here, where for me he's been probably our best centre-back overall this year, and probably overall for the last 18 months in terms of reliability, consistency, and the ever-improving performances and development that we're seeing from him and his game. We're seeing him now getting man of the matches in Champions League. We're seeing him scoring goals for Ireland. And for Celtic, we're seeing him become an absolute stalwart, an absolute must-have on the team sheet here. So really pleased that the faith that I think Brendan has now rediscovered in Scales has been shown again in this match here. But I must confess, I was quite surprised to see Carter Vickers starting this game, which is why I mentioned the Thursday-Sunday stuff a second ago, because Vickers is normally the player we want to wrap up in cotton wool, we want to protect, we want to manage his minutes. And with him playing Thursday night, playing the full game, and with Trusty being kind of out the picture over the last few games, I thought this would be a great opportunity for Trusty and Scales to partner each other, get Trusty some minutes, keep Carter Vickers ready for the derby, etc. But Vickers and Scales came back in to be the centre-back partnership. And although I must confess, earlier this season when Trusty was starting to get into his rhythm and he started to play alongside Carter Vickers, it did feel that there was a lovely synergy, there was a lovely balance that was found in centre-back that we hadn't previously had with any of the other players that we'd brought in to play alongside Vickers or with any of the players that were shoehorned into play alongside Liam Scales over the last couple of years. But whether it's Scales watching it from the bench and seeing what trust he gives that he wasn't given, or whether it's he's just got better at some of the stuff he was doing already, I'm still a little bit undecided about. But one thing that I am very clear on is, for me, Carter Vickers is the best defender that we've got, right? Make no mistake about it. But Scales, for me, is the first centre-back on the team sheet now. Vickers is always going to be that question on his load management, his minute management, etc. And Scales hasn't had that problem. We've seen how many games last season, or was it the season before, Kyogo played in every single game, and Scales only missed out in one match. That might have been over the last 2 years, I forget. But he's been ever present. He's played with about 5 million different centre-back partners across the time he's been here. And for me now, there really needs to be a good reason to play Trusty over Scales, especially in a big match, like a derby match, Champions League, this type of thing, where maybe we're worried about pace, because it's the only real difference between the two of them at the moment. So we've seen Scales and Vickers. We've seen the return of Alistair Johnstone, which, some people were thinking maybe Ralston starts and Johnstone comes in later. But we see Johnstone get the start with Ralston coming in later, which we'll talk about as the game goes on. And maybe the biggest surprise, no, definitely not the biggest surprise. The second biggest surprise of the starting 11 for me was Valle coming in, because Greg Taylor has very much been teacher's pet. Brendan Rodgers has been very open in the press conference about Taylor's importance to the squad, how much he values him, etc., etc. And, we maybe don't need him against St Johnstone or whatever, but it did feel that maybe Valle would have, the minutes would have been more appropriate against Motherwell perhaps, and then you bring Taylor in for this game to keep the reps going up, to keep the revs going into the Rangers game itself. But Alex Valle is probably the only position in the pitch here where there could be another change of the guard ahead of the derby match and even into the second half of the season here, because Valle isn't our player, he's on loan. I'm very dubious whether he will actually stay next year. I'm quite convinced he won't be here next year. And Taylor, by all accounts, isn't going to be here next year as things stand at the moment. And there's even some rumours bubbling around that maybe he's a January departure, which is going to accelerate our need for a left-back. Point being, this job, there's no loyalty to be had, in terms of the two players. It's going to be the best player for the job. And there might be a little bit of horses for courses in terms of, this guy plays a bit more like this and this guy plays a bit more like that. So Valle come into this game here, maybe is a little bit of, the best horse for the course here on this one, and maybe probably Taylor will come back in for the derby, but again, we'll speak about that in a second. And that was the second biggest shock of the starting 11, because the biggest shock was that there was no Callum McGregor. And I must say, guys, you guys who have been on this channel since the beginning of the season, you'll know this already. For some of you guys that have been here longer than that, you'll know a lot of this stuff from me already. But Callum McGregor is not a defensive midfielder. He just isn't, but he's got this gravitational pull on him. It just magnetises him into the centre of the pitch here, and he just lives and breathes that being on the ball, getting a million touches a match and all the rest of it. But getting Bernardo in as a centre defensive midfielder in a possession-based team like us, like his former team who trained him since being a child, Benfica, this is much more of his natural habitat for me, and I think we really did see the benefits of having a guy in here who's big and strong. And I'm kind of getting ahead of the team and into the game, I suppose, but Bernardo in this game was exceptional for me, and it was especially at being that centre defensive midfielder. He put his body in when it mattered, he was recovering when it mattered, and ultimately, across the first half, I wasn't counting, right, but I think he got 7 or 8 passes in the first half. Now, Callum McGregor, in 45 minutes of football, has never only completed 8 passes. It's more like 48, if anything. And a big reason for that was, number one, there's not this pressure to give Bernardo the ball the same way that there is with McGregor. So sometimes Vickers, Scales, Valle, Johnson, take your pick, could have been anyone. They were going to Engels a bit quicker. They were going to Hatate a bit quicker. They were maybe playing the wing faster. And it really did feel in the first half of this game, St Johnstone set up in a 3-5-2, which became a 5-3-2 or 5-4-1, kind of out of possession, depending on what moment of the game you want to snip here. But it's very similar to maybe a bit more 4-4-2. This Vrancic guy was a bit more right midi than right back, but he was certainly coming into these spaces here along with Esso. But they didn't do anything terribly different to what we've seen every other team against Celtic, especially every other team that comes to Celtic Park, try and do to stay in the game. So much so that these guys were wasting time. Craig Gordon would be proud of this from Ray here very early on in the match. They really wanted the first half to pass everyone by. They wanted to get to half-time at 0-0, and it felt like it was a very attacking Celtic performance, and I put a lot of that on Bernardo's presence in here, whether it be him directly, one touch passing out to fullbacks, playing round the corner into Hatate or into Engels, or like I say, the lack of pressure or obligation for other players to give the ball to this player here, because it's not McGregor, it's Bernardo. And we found Hatate on the ball a lot more, driving through these spaces here. We find Engels, and I think Engels over the last 2 matches especially has really underlined what his qualities are. It was something we were talking about before the Christmas break, that Engels wasn't obviously showing what problems he solves or what attributes what dimension he adds into the midfield and into the team. And I think in this midfield three, it's probably the best balance of a midfield that we've had. I don't want to say across the whole season, because McGregor is fantastic. He's having one of his best games of his career, obviously, in terms of goals and all the rest of it. But Engels just felt like he was really off the leash. He really knew his job, and his running power, one of those Brendan Rodgers buzzwords, power, was evident to see here. He was popping up in all sorts of areas, and we've seen a nice bit of freedom from Engels, similar to the last game that we covered, where we had the 3 wee guys in midfield, where we played McGregor, McKeown and Hatate, and we've seen Hatate and McKeown kind of going everywhere. We got a bit of that from Engels in this game, where he was just, quite free and open to being into lots of different positions here, similar to Hatate. And I think when they've got that security of knowing that Bernardo is not going to overtake them, is not going to, bypass them, carry the ball, make a third man run into the forward area, he's going to sit and hold. It's almost like an advanced centre-back, some of the, for his stature and his kind of size and all the rest of it. Now, don't get me wrong, in different passages of play, Bernardo, Engels and Hatate, still I think of this in my head as being the Man United midfielder principle. When you think about, when you hear the old timers that used to play for Man United talk about midfielders, Roy Keane especially, but it's like, your job is to do it all. You're supposed to score goals, you're supposed to defend. It used to be 4-4-2, it used to just be 2 guys in midfield, whereas now we've got 3, and it's like, oh no, you're a defender, and you're an attacker, and you're this and you're that. All of our guys are like Man United midfielders, where although Bernardo or McGregor can be in this position here at any moment in the match, you can freeze frame it, and you might find that Bernardo's here and Hatate's here. And actually in this game, especially when McGregor wasn't on the pitch, Hatate was actually finding himself, whenever we needed to do that kind of knitting of the play, 1-2 touch stuff with centre-backs, let the other players, like the full-backs and the forwards, pick up positions. Hatate was still kind of dropping in, knitting in and doing that job. We see Engels as well, going up and down the pitch, and at different moments, you could really see any combination of this midfield in terms of positionally that you would try and find. It was all there to be seen, but the majority of the time it was quite firmly Bernardo anchored into the centre of the 3 of them and shielding in front of the back 2 here. And for me, this was fantastic. It really gave a great platform for the likes of Kuhn and Johnstone to dominate the right hand side. And I think to a lot of people's surprise, or whatever the word would be, Valle and Yang Gang having a bit of a party down the left hand side. And I must say, the left hand side was quite refreshing in this game, because Valle gives you speed, it gives you intensity, he's very direct as well. Taylor, quite similar to McGregor, will quite happily take a few touches, make a meaningless pass here, play here, and just kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts, Brendan Rodgers tiki-taka style, which is fine, right? But when you're Celtic, when you're going to have 70-80% of possession, and we're at home and we're expecting to batter a team, we don't need to do that. We can go forward, and Valle really gave us a nice kind of front foot approach from these wide areas here, very similar to what we get from Alistair Johnstone. So there's a nice symmetry kind of building out in the wide areas. Nicolas Kuhn we'll talk about in a second. I think Yang has definitely came out of this game as a bit of a winner. Daizen Maeda is fantastic, we all love him, he's a hero, he's a proper hunt scalper, and he's going to be a Celtic legend if he continues on the way he's going. I think we all agree on that, okay? But Yang out here is a winger. He's a proper winger's winger, where he wants to beat a man, he wants to drop the shoulder, he wants to cut inside, he wants to take them for pace down the line, and he keeps control of the ball when he runs with it. Maeda's much more of like a wide inside forward in these areas, and we've seen that when he came on, particularly for his goal, very hallmark, trademark Daizen Maeda. But Yang and Valle out here was just much more Brendan Rodgers wing play, very similar to what we have on the right hand side. And St Johnstone, the longer this game went on, couldn't really handle the fact of, we weren't taking our time in the middle to build up the web like we normally do, but we were still getting Scales and Vickers into their half. We were still putting Hatate and Engels really high and forward and putting them under a lot of pressure. And then, like I say, we had Bernardo kind of shielding in, and depending on where Johnstone or Valle were, they were quite happy to keep it narrow and dominate the ball, that kind of stuff as well, which is great. But this meant that we actually created a wide variety of chances. We tested the goalkeeper off and ultimately we ended up scoring a batch full of goals, which is great. But what I think this kind of base structure really did help above all else, I've already mentioned Engels, but also Hatate. Having that space, because when Taylor lives in here and when McGregor lives in here, but McGregor wants to get really close, like, when the opposition players are here, there's a lot of space that gets taken up by people, and people can't move through people, they're not transparent, they're not holograms or whatever. And the more people can contest a tight space, the harder it is to play those through balls, the harder it is to fashion a chance to create space for someone to get a shot away, etc. And I did feel that with Yang and Valle, with Johnstone and Kuhn, and even with Bernardo just hanging in a bit deeper here, there was more pockets of space for Engels to drive through and arrive late, or be the third man run from midfield to support the forwards. The exact same as Hatate. And Hatate in this game, I said on Axom, it felt like he was a couple of pounds lighter. It just felt like he crossed the pitch a bit quicker. He was a little bit sharper. That might be a benefit on him sitting out the game on Thursday night. Happy to admit that. It might be a number of different things really, but I really did feel that anyone who forgot what a good Hatate performance looks like, seen it here today. He was composed in possession, very rarely gave the ball away, and in the forward areas he was dangerous. He was, the key operator going forward and in attack. And really, like, the first half, we huffed and we puffed, and it was very close to being quite a convincing, quite a dominant first half here. But St Johnstone, to their credit, they did make it tight. The goalkeeper made a few good saves, and that, I thought against Motherwell and the game before that against Dundee United, that I've not seen teams be that deep against Celtic where they really literally had no forwards. But St Johnstone continued that recent trend that we've seen of teams like really just try and sit in super deep. Scales and Vickers are then getting into the other half very comfortably on the ball. And with the dominant possession we had, the difference in this game, we actually got the shots away, like I mentioned already. But there could have been more. There was a few chances that did go a begging, and I'm not going to talk through all of them, but there was two instances in this game that really caught my attention, and I do like to think I can pick up on this stuff when I'm watching out for it in games, just from my own experience and what I like watching about football. But there was a great chance where Kuhn went on one of those, he had like 2 or 3 runs in this half where he started out here, came inside and done everyone for fun, and then obviously he gets his goal from it eventually to open the scoring on the 30th minute. But he had one of these runs where he should have been playing it to Yang. There was another opportunity as well with Hatate when he was coming into this space here, and again he should have been playing it into Yang. And it did feel in that opening 30 minutes there was 2 chances there to make the right pass, to make the right ball, but there was maybe just that bit of hesitancy from the rest of the Celtic team. And throughout Yang's appearances so far this season, this is something we've highlighted on the channel a few times, whether it's Yang, whether it's Palma, the guys that aren't nailed in, they're definitely Celtic calibre players, you can see when they get onto the pitch that the rest of the team kind of feel that as well. And if they don't need to give them the ball, or it's not obviously going to work out to be amazing for us, they might take the shot themselves. They might play the slightly harder pass to try and find a Kyogo or an Engels or whoever it might be we're talking about. So that was something that I just felt that, hey, if we just trusted the kid a little bit more, Rio could have played him in, Kuhn could have played him in. Maybe the Kuhn one's a bit of a stretch because he had beaten 4 guys, and it's like rush of blood to the head. You kind of lose all that kind of peripheral vision and you're just focused on ball and goal. And so it might be a bit of that for Kuhn, but I think he's a higher calibre player than that. I don't think that would have been what he was going for, but you never know. So give him a wee bit of latitude on that. But there were some chances that did go a begging, and really there was no expectations for me that coming into half-time we would see any changes. But we did see 3 changes from St Johnstone. Now, I must admit, at half-time, when they bring on Sidibe, Kimpioka and Nielsen, I did think, fair play to this manager. He's come in here with an actual game plan. They weren't just trying to kill the entire game with the time wasting and the non-attacking play that they had. They were just trying to kill the first half, take us into the second, and try and do a bit of an Aberdeen on us. Fair play to them. You've got to have an idea of how you're going to get points out of the match, a route to goal, a way to success, as it were. And Sidibe and Kimpioka, I was quite surprised none of them started, because they've been the main talisman, the main weapons, the main arsenal for St Johnstone. And the first couple of minutes of the second half, Scales had to make a block. These guys added a bit of vigour. They definitely added a bit of tempo. But because St Johnstone did have that licence in the second half to, hey, we're only 1-0 down, let's get the attackers on, let's go and try and get back into the game, it really then just did open up a lot more of these spaces for us to try and quickly play into. And that's why I was highlighting this stuff from the first half, because it paid off a lot better. in the second half is they did actually try and attack us a little bit more. It just meant then that there was all this space for Hatate to counter into. It just meant that Engels had room to kind of drive and get up the pitch as well. And it meant when it did go into the wide areas, because they were playing this kind of 3-5-2, if it went into the wide areas quickly, either a centre midfielder like a Nielsen or a Sprangler, depending on what side of the pitch it was, maybe one of the forwards were coming back to help out. But it just then meant we were able to just take them apart. You know, we were able to just stretch them over the pitch and find those gaps to get the goals coming in. And Kyogo's first goal is a great goal for Kyogo to score, because I've been dying for him to find his poachers, his nose for goal, to be that fox in the box again, because Kyogo, we know he's a fantastic forward that runs the channels, makes great movement, is a real headache for defenders and goalkeepers everywhere. But when he started at Celtic, he was like, oh, he's only had 10 touches in the first 10 games, but he scored 8 goals. You know, he's not a build-up player, he's a finisher. And in these positions, he should be finishing. And, you know, finally he gets a finisher's goal where, what a ball from Hatate. Scoops it. And the thing about the ball from Hatate when you're watching this back is he gets an amazing height on the ball and it drops right into the perfect area. Big old Bernardo with the third man run comes in here, smashes it off the keeper, and Kyogo's there just to nod it in for the tap in. And it's a great poacher's goal, a great finisher's goal. So I was really happy that he got that type of goal under his belt, because that's just going to breathe a bit of confidence and take a bit of the pressure off him a wee bit, because I'm putting it on him, you guys are putting it on him. As in at Celtic, like, that's just the way it goes. At the beginning of this season, he and us would have been looking at Kyogo breaking the century, getting 100 Celtic goals, and the way the first 18 games in the league have went, and 6 games in the Champions League and the Cup games and whatever, he's been nowhere near it in terms of his scoring numbers. The amount of opportunities he's missed has been embarrassing, to be quite honest with you, for a guy of his calibre. So I was really pleased that he got that kind of crappy, scrappy goal. Feels really good for him, his confidence. And then wouldn't you know it, it's compounded, it's underlined about 5 minutes later when Engels, you know, the ball's kind of breaking around and it eventually finds its way through the kind of build-up play with, I don't know if it was Alice or Johnstone or Bernardo or Hatate, but somebody finds Engels out here in the wide right position and he just slices one of those great balls. Like, if you ever remember a good Izagiri cross, now there wasn't many of them, but a good Izagiri cross used to come, also on the left, but used to come from this type of area here, and it would be bent in front of the defence for the striker to get on the end of and put it in. And Kyogo, you've seen him in the post-match interview with Engels where he says, oh, his assist, you know, proper, it was a great pass, and again, that's a finisher's goal, you know, so he doesn't get the hat-trick in the game. We all know he's going to come off for Ida, especially now that he's scored, but hopefully Kyogo's feeling a foot taller again. And, you know, with the style of play and the success we're getting in all other areas of the pitch, it is the strikers that have been letting us down. And I say letting us down in the nicest way possible, because Kyogo's still scored goals this year. Important goals, made some assists as well. Not as many as we would like, but he's still done it. And Ida's goals to minute ratio isn't too bad either, but we would expect them to be scoring more goals than what they are at the moment. So absolutely fantastic that that's the way the game went. And basically right after that, we then get the triple sub on the 67th minute. We get Engels coming off for McGregor, and then this, for me, guys, this is when I was like, oh, let's see what he's going to do here. We can call him Kyogo again because he scored goals, right? So Kyogo comes off for Daizen Maeda, and Kuhn makes way for Daizen. Now, this is quite interesting because I did find it weird that against Motherwell in the last game that Daizen got 90 minutes on a Thursday ahead of a weekend game on a Sunday before we play them on a Thursday. And there was no way that if we started Daizen and Kuhn in this game that Rodgers wanted both of them getting 90 minutes on a Sunday, especially with Daizen just getting 90 minutes on the Thursday ahead of the Sunday. So it made a bit of sense because then we can bring off Kuhn for Daizen, and then we put Daizen back onto his favoured left. We bring Yang over to the right. Yang feels good, he's getting 90 minutes. We get a bit more development out of him potentially. Maybe it's just some shop window action, but anyway, that's a story that's a topic for another day, I suppose. But with Bernardo being so effective and efficient in this deeper position here, I was so hoping that McGregor was going to come on and do a bit of the McCowans that we've seen when he plays with Rio Hatate. And, you know, again, think about everything Hatate did in this game. McGregor could do that. If McGregor played in that Hatate role and we had Bernardo permanently in here, we would get way more out of McGregor. Now, I'm not saying he's better than Hatate necessarily, but even this as a midfield three would be very strong for me. We do play this midfield three sometimes, and this is the midfield three that finished this game, but sadly we don't maximise each individual here, I don't think, because when McGregor comes on, This isn't what we get. We get Bernardo going back to where he usually hangs out when McGregor's on the pitch, and McGregor gets back into his comfy role in here in the middle of the D, into the middle of the spider's web as it is. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I say, McGregor's fine, and when we're not like playing a team that are causing us big problems, we don't need an out-and-out defensive midfielder to marshal in front of the defence. I totally get that. But we got McGregor back in his usual spot. We got Bernardo a little bit further forward. And by the way, this did kind of pay off, because Bernardo's not got that running power that you'd have seen Engels display over the last couple of games quite clearly, and we all know he's not got the flair and the technical ability of Hatate necessarily. But Bernardo is fantastic in tight spaces. He is very effective and efficient with the ball, very rarely loses it, and always makes the right decision by the team. And we see that for his assist where he plays through Daizen Maeda for him to poke it home to make it 4-0. And it was great to see Bernardo get an assist after him not getting the goal that Kyogo eventually scored. And then at that point, we see Ralston come on for Alistair Johnstone, which I think a lot of people would have suspected. And then we see Rio Hatate leave the pitch for Luke McCowan, chocolate bar, oh. And again, Bernardo then comes over to this side. We've got McCowan here. That's the way I kind of remember it anyway, but maybe it wasn't. There wasn't too much shape towards the end of the game, because I think everyone wanted in on the act. McGregor was definitely choking to get a goal or an assist in this game. Ida was definitely dying to get on the score sheet. Daizen done his job. Yang was still kind of hunting for it himself. Never mind the likes of Valle and McCowan coming off the bench. So we managed to keep the tempo nice and high. Never really gave them an in to get back into the game. I've missed out their final two subs. They brought on Carey for Sprangler and Holt for Sanders. And when Holt came on, former Rangers player that he is, had a wee instruction list, had a wee sheet of where they were to change and move around in. And really, it's hard to keep track of who was where by this stage of the game. So I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what St Johnstone were doing. But we're 4-0 up. We were cruising. It was a great performance and a great result from everyone here. And you know, the midfield development, I kind of touched on it a little bit in this game here. But over the last couple of games, against Motherwell, where we played Engels, Bernardo and McGregor, and the game before that against Dundee United, where we played Hatate, McGregor and McCowan, we've played three totally different midfields with the 5 players we've got at our disposal over the last 3 games. Great minute management as well from the manager, it must be said. But one thing, like when we played the 3 wee guys against Dundee United, and you know, we kind of spoke about this after the game with the much changed back 4, I was expecting to see more link-up play. I was expecting to see the midfield actually like control and dictate the game a bit better as like a midfield. And against Motherwell, we actually got a little bit more of that. You know, I remember watching the Motherwell game thinking that we seen much more like kind of V passes. And what I mean by that is, like, if McGregor was the deepest, let's just imagine McCowan as Engels for easiness, but like, you know, these types of passing, it wouldn't be quite a triangle, but we would get a nice kind of V on the go. And that kind of passing shape or technique hasn't really been used too much for us for the most part. If the ball comes to McGregor, it's very rare he plays to another midfielder. He likes to play Taylor. He likes to play centre-backs and that kind of thing as well. And with the with the other midfielders, it's very rare that they actually look to link up with McGregor unless they're giving him the ball back to recycle possession. But it was like Engels could give the ball to McGregor and he'd find Bernardo, or Bernardo could give the ball to McGregor and he could find Engels. And it felt like against Motherwell, we're actually starting to build up a little bit of midfield cohesion. And when we come into this game today, especially when we seen the starting 11, I was hoping that we might have seen a further markable improvement, development in the midfield three, in terms of that dynamic of them linking together, of them dictating the play, of them controlling the match. And I wouldn't necessarily say Engels, Bernardo, Hatate were overly linking up with each other in terms of it was a notable difference to games gone by, because we did have Engels pitched out on one side, Hatate pitched out on the other, with the freedom to mix and roam around like we've seen them do. But if you look at the player ratings here, I don't think we've had as good a midfield free performance from the starting three as we've had in this one. Bernardo coming out with an 85 out of 100 score. Huge, incredible defensive performance here. 2 tackles won, 2 interceptions. He's won 3 duels, but he's also lost 3, so it doesn't really count for much. And his pass count here, only 48 accurate passes. Now, I know he didn't play the full 90 minutes in that position, but McGregor trebles that number in a lot of games, and it just kind of further highlights the fact that we took much less touches of the ball. We got into the final third, or we got into the opposition half a lot quicker, and I think that was a huge part on how we were able to, you know, get the most or get more out of Hatate and Engels. He does get a big chance missed, credited to him for, you know, Kyogo's goal essentially. But the big man had a great shift and he just does not put a foot wrong. ARNE ENGELS is the man of the match on this one with a 76 out of 100 match rating. Again, a big chance missed for him with the chance that Yang was desperate to get an assist there. He went by so many guys, put it on a plate for Engels, but it was just out of reach for him. He gets a big chance missed, 2 shots on target. Very unlucky not to score with those one, or the one that wasn't the big chance miss, certainly anyway. A lot of corners into the box, etc. No interceptions, not that many actual passing on the go here for Engels. So it was a lot of driving, it was a lot of arriving into the box late. But I think his energy and his quality really shone through in this game. Quite similar to Hatate in that regard. Again, no tackles won, no interceptions. He's not won more duels than he lost, sadly. Only 35 accurate passes, but the majority of them, again, are in the final third, are penetrating into the box. He is creating big chances, making attempted assists himself. And it really did feel like a balanced midfield three. You know, you can just look at the numbers here. I think they really speak for themselves. The highest rated performer on the day was Alex Valle, would you believe, with an 87.6 out of 100 point rating. He gets 10 points for his clean sheet bonus there, of course. 2 tackles, 1 in effective clearance. And again, for the duels, by the way, we've not got anyone really dominating them. 7-1, 7 lost. But look at this, 90 accurate passes for the wee man here. 43 of them into the final third. Only 14 passes missed, which, you know, probably not a great percentage, but volume, that's going to happen, you know, just as a matter of course. 11 balls into the box, 6 of them became attempted assists, and he got his shot on target, which, you know, I would have loved to have seen that one go in. Scales wasn't too far behind him on an 82.2 performance. He's got an attempted assist and a ball and a penalty area entry, a ball into the box. He's got his clean sheet bonus. 5 effective clearances, no tackles, no interceptions, which I counted 2 interceptions in this game, but hey ho, up to analysis and all the rest of it. He's probably been credited them as duels won rather than interceptions, so that's fine. He's won 6 duels, only lost 2, so positive 4. That's lovely to see. 111 accurate passes, 29 of them in the final third for a centre-back. You know, it kind of speaks to the geographical position he was on the pitch, like we've mentioned for the last couple of games. And overall, an absolute titan performance here. Carter Vickers definitely gets a mention as well, but I really want to look at his passing stats, 94. So again, we had a lot of the ball in defence, but normally Vickers, McGregor and Scales all get like 40 passes just between them, moving the ball between themselves. And although the centre-back still had that volume, it was getting to Hatate quicker, it was getting to the wide areas quicker, where we're going further up the pitch with it, without McGregor wanting to, you know, be the teacher's pet in this instance and just do to the letter of the law what the commandments are, what the commands are from the manager, as it were. But Big Vickers with an imperious performance as ever. AJ on a 62, definitely gets a note, definitely gets a mention as well with his tackle 1, 45 passes, 5 balls into the box. Good shift from him on his return from injury. But I do think Kyogo deserves a mention on this one. He's got 2 goals in the game, 3 shots on target. He will be a bit gutted that he had 3 shots on target, but there's probably like 5 chances he had to score in this game. And he will be a little bit disappointed he never got a hat-trick in this one to really kick his game into action. But like we've mentioned with him before, he's had 2 passes in this game, 1 missed pass. He's lost possession twice. One of them would have been the missed pass. He gets very few touches of the ball. That's why the pressure is on him to finish, because he does, with the greatest respect, nothing else but the runs that create space for other people. I get that, right? But you know what I'm saying. Ida, for me, is a bit more link up and has a, you know, you see that when he starts, he has a bit more passing to him. So great to see the goals for the wee man here. Nicolas Kuhn back in action, 77.9 points. Only played 68 minutes in the game as well, by the way. It must be said, everyone that outscored Nicolas Kuhn got more minutes, with the exception of Kyogo, who marginally scored a little bit better than him. In attack, what did we get from him? We got 2 contests, 1 which is like a dribble. We've seen him do that a few times in this game. Shots on target, 5 balls into the box. Not quite enough of his balls went into the box for me. He had too many cut inside dribbles. You know, one of the things I like about Kuhn is he does have the option. He has the variety in his game to go on the outside. We've never really seen enough of that in this game from him, but it's his first game back. We'll let him away with it. Interception, duels, passing stats are all quite fine as well, aren't they? 2 tackles, 1. 2 tackles, 1, and an interception for wee Nicolas Kuhn. Again, his defensive contribution way under the radar here, and you know, fair play to him on keeping that going up. Yang will have a look at, because he got 52.7 out of 100, which is one of his better performances. We got 3 contests won from him in terms of dribbles won, a big chance created for ARNE ENGELS, 4 attempted assists, which is the same as the 4 balls he's played into the box here. And you know what he did ended up being something. You know, he got into the box, he won duels, he won contests. 38 passes, 23 of them in the final third. Being an attacking winger, you'd expect to see that. And 2 tackles, 1 for the wee man. Check that out. On you go, Yang Gang. Love a bit of that. good defensive contribution from the front line. And then I'm not going to go through the whole bench, right, because not many of them got that many minutes, but Daizen Maeda picked up a 71. He got his goal off the bench, which is great to see for him. 1 shot, 1 contest, one attempted assist. Not much actually happened. He still got an interception, but the wee man is absolutely non-stop, isn't he? And fair play to him coming off the bench, getting his goal, keeping his form going. But Luke McKeown, by the way, in 16 minutes in this game, picking up a 55.5 out of 100 is impressive. 1 shot on target, 6 balls into the box. One of them became an attempted assist. He's got his interception there as well. And these passing numbers, 21 passes, 14 in the final third, aren't too different to Hatate and Engels, who played way longer in this match. So again, actual contribution. He's won a tackle as well. Well done, wee man. He's an impressive little 15 minutes, although I must admit, watching the game, it wasn't totally obvious. He did see that kind of spark he gave, but I wouldn't have had him scoring so many points, as it were, with so little minutes to gain them on the pitch. But a very convincing 4-0 result here, and I think this does now just kind of paint us into the next game that we've got coming up. Now, like I mentioned at the tip-off, it's very cold in Govan these days. It's going to be minus 14 when we get there. By the end of the game, it might even be minus 17. So I know none of you are going to be going to the game because there's no away fans or whatever, but if you're in the vicinity on Thursday, make sure to wrap up, make sure there's a bottle of water in the car, make sure you've got your phone charged and all that stuff, just in case you break down. Would hate to see anyone caught there in minus 17 conditions. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, guys. The next video we'll have on the channel will be previewing properly the Rangers game itself. But I think we can see what Brendan's been trying to do with the squad over this game and the last couple in terms of the rotations, the different combinations of midfield and front three that we've seen. And we could probably all name the team that Brendan's going to pick. Or could we? There's still 2 big question marks, maybe even 3 to do on the predicted 11 when we're next back on the channel here. I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. Do not forget to like, subscribe, share, retweet and all that good stuff, guys. We recently broke through 10,000 subscribers and we're on our way to 18,888. On screen now is some of those videos I mentioned in the intro that you might want to check out. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Do not forget to get into the comments section and let me know your big hot takeaways, your main thoughts and feelings on the game coming out of it, whether it be the ones we've came out of or the one we're about to go into. Hail, hail, Moan the Hoops.